Hello, Spartan fans, and welcome into this latest edition of the Michigan State Spartans Insider Podcast. I'm your beat reporter for Michigan State Spartans on SI, Aidan Champion. And Big Ten Media Days is here. Michigan State will be representing on Thursday, tomorrow. Jonathan Smith will be joined by three other Spartans, Nick Marsh, Stanton Ramil, and Jordan Hall. Those will be the three players accompanying Jonathan Smith, and I'm curious to see what some of the discussion is for Jonathan Smith. Um, One, when he gets up to the main podium, and two, when he has his um, his smaller media availability at the at they split off into little sections. So he'll have two different sessions, but I'm interested to see, because last year the obviously a lot of the discussion was him being new, just philosophy stuff, who he brought over with him, which Aiden Child's one of them, one of those players, and that I'm sure that's going to be a hot topic again tomorrow. Um, but I've got some topics I'm interested to hear about. I won't be there, um, but I'd like to know. Um, I want to see some reflection first off on last season. I hope we don't just immediately jump to next season. I want to hear a bit about what Jonathan Smith, from his point of view, what he thought went wrong at certain points, because there's a number of things you can point to. You can point to injuries, um, the development of Childs and him getting settled as a first year full-time starter. But I'd also be interested to know, and I don't, knowing Jonathan Smith, I don't know if he necessarily would get into this. He might see it as kind of an excuse, and I know he's not into excuses. Um, but I'd like to know a little about how he may have felt about the strength of schedule, because things really took a turn. Even though they had lost to Boston College, which, I do think that was certainly a turning point. But after that, you got Ohio State and Oregon, and I think you were almost doomed with those back-to-back games, and that really was when things kind of derailed. But so I'd like to hear some reflection on last year where he felt things went wrong in some areas. Um, and then Aiden Childs, as I said, I know that's going to be a topic discussed. One, he's your quarterback, and two, there's so many questions that surround Childs, uh, considering the season he had last year, and then just his potential, because he's got a very high ceiling and can be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I'd like to know what Jonathan Smith. We heard in spring camp where things kind of were with Childs, what they were working on with him in the offseason. And it was a lot of the things that we saw um, as issues last year, whether that was accuracy. Brian Lindgren talked about his footwork. That was something that kind of had an overall impact. That affected accuracy. It affected um, kind of pocket presence, his patience, another thing that they were working on with him. But so I'd like to know where, obviously they haven't started fall camp yet, but just um, how much of it he sees coming together. I mean, I'm sure that they communicate throughout the offseason, have talked since spring ball. Um, so I guess I'd just like to know where things kind of stand there. I know Jonathan Smith said in the spring that Aiden had he felt he got stronger. Um, and then on top of that, I'd like to know just kind of how good Smith really thinks Aiden can be, because obviously he knows him as well as anyone. Um, like I said, followed him over from Oregon State, obviously. So, um, would definitely just like to get a read of where things are there. Um, and I guess I'd like to know about certain opponents on schedule. Maybe ones he hasn't seen yet as head coach. Penn State being one of them. That will be one of their toughest games. Well, they're the toughest game on their schedule. Um, but maybe like when they go out west for USC, that's their Big Ten opener, their first away game. Um, maybe how he's kind of viewing that road trip and where how crucial that will be. I don't think that will come up necessarily that topic specifically because I don't think he's going to want to look too far down the road. I know he was asked last year about Oregon, because there was already a rivalry there with Oregon State, of course, but um, just maybe opponents that he knew from the Pac-12, like USC, UCLA, who both of whom Michigan State will play. I'd like to know, maybe speaking of UCLA, how uh, if there's an excitement for hosting them for homecoming, especially considering it's been decades since these teams played. Him and Deshaun Foster, played college the same years. Um, in the Pac-12 was the Pac-10 then. Um, how both their programs are kind of very similar, both 5-7 last year, both new head coaches, both kind of the same expectations not really being held. The bar's not being held too high for either of them. Again, that one, don't expect to hear too much about that. Um, as far as specific opponents, but um, I'm sure it'll be brought up, but just the idea of college football playoff expansion. I'm sure this will be brought up too, NIL and the House bill, the House versus NCAA settlement, and how that's already having an impact. I'm sure he'll be asked about Jay Bat. I would expect he would be, um, and just how the progress is going there. Those ones that I just listed I would say, are probably more glaring and more likely to be asked and answered. Um, and then just ultimately how he's feeling about the season. Obviously, he's not gonna um, be negative about it or tell you that the expectation is, I don't know. Last year he said to win more games than you lose. And I'd be interested to see if that's still his answer, considering now, full year at Michigan State, he knows how much pressure there is with this position and how demanding the fans are. Maybe now he um, may change that up, especially after not making a bowl game in year one. Um, I don't know how he would modify that answer, Um, but I guess I just overall, I'd like to see a little more aggressiveness from Jonathan Smith, and I think most people would. I think, uh, his style isn't that, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But at the same time, when you, uh, didn't, when you went below 500 in your first year and um, you're playing in arguably the best conference, college football, I mean, the fans want some sort of um, a strong voice, someone who's determined to get better. Um, and so if you got to exaggerate a bit, if you've got to um, get a little more rah-rah, maybe a little Dan Campbell in you, which Jonathan Smith, that's kind of a reach for him. But you know, um, have some confidence. And I'm not saying Jonathan Smith isn't confident. I mean, he is a great coach. He is. But I think fans would just like to see a little more emotion there. Um, so I'm interested to see if the tone is a little different. Maybe if he's just seems like he's got a chip on his shoulder, got an edge. Um, would like to see that come out. But again, not really his style. Um, so it'll just it'll be interesting to see how he answers those kind of questions. Um, I'm sure he'll talk about new transfers and because there were some who were added after spring ball, so we didn't get to talk to him yet about some of them. So I'm interested to hear about those too, those transfers. But a lot to discuss, um, and then shortly after, we're going to be getting into fall camp, and then it's time to start the grind. Um, Time where your actions will speak. You can only say so much, but you gotta be able to back it all up. So, um, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Would love to know what you're all hoping to hear from Jonathan Smith, from the players too. I didn't talk about the players, but um, with players, it's uh, you can kind of know what to expect. Um, but uh, but yeah, let me know what you think because of course, there's a lot to talk about, whether it's Michigan State specifically or college football, uh, in a general sense, because there's a lot going on with college football too and college athletics as a whole. It's a new era. But but yeah, let me know. As always, thanks everyone. I hope you're excited. Hope you're excited for football because I am, and um, Spartan football. I do think that there's reasons to be excited, and it is almost here. So buckle up. Um, Hope you're all having a great week. Appreciate you tuning in as always, and you can read all of our content on Michigan State Spartans on SI, giving you daily content that will always keep you in the know and keep you busy. Thank you again.